The fifth proxy item today is a shareowner proposal requesting a report on certain matters relating to glyphosate. Ann Temple is with us today representing the sponsor of the proposal. And at this point, Ms. Temple, the floor is yours. Welcome to St. Louis.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your attention. My name is Ann Temple, standing in for Zen Honeycutt from Moms Across America due to a death in the family. We are representing John Harrington of Harrington Investments. We are asking for shareholder support for item number 5, a reasonable and important request for a report regarding the company's plan to mitigate inevitable losses from public exposure to Roundup. I am here with international advocate Beth Savitt of the Shaka Movement from Maui and Rachel Parent of Kids Right to Know of Canada. 3 generations speaking up for the health of our nations. Our loved ones are getting sick and are dying at alarming rates, but many of us are finding our family's health improves when we avoid GMOs and toxic chemicals and eat organic. I'm giving a binder of 42 studies to the board showing that glyphosate kills placental cells, is a neurotoxin, increases antibiotic resistance, causes sex hormone changes, causes growth of cancer cells, and causes liver and kidney damage at doses far lower than what is allowed in our food. I am here to appeal to Monsanto to change direction and reduce harm, and here are 3 of the reasons why. 1. EPA documents uncovered in 2015 reveal that Monsanto has known that glyphosate has cancer-causing effects since 1983. 2. Misuse of Roundup and glyphosate in our food, water, air, parks, and public spaces is rampant. Glyphosate is sprayed on roadsides and public areas without following the directions on the label to keep people and pets away until dry. The EPA has recently confirmed that pesticide applicators must follow label instructions, yet most city landscapers or school applicators do not barricade these areas for drying, thereby complying with the label. This practice exposes pregnant mothers and children to toxic chemicals, which have been shown to be neurotoxic, cause organ damage, and have been connected to birth defects. This leaves city councils and Monsanto wide open for national class action lawsuits. 3. Lack of testing is sure to create legal ramifications. Consumers are demanding transparency. Scientists have discovered that no blood analysis has been made available to regulatory agencies after full formulation testing with the real market product Roundup. So claims that Roundup's full formulations are safe are actually unfounded. This is sure to raise considerable issues in the pending 700 lawsuits against Monsanto for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and impact shareholder profits. Money, however, is not the only consideration of truly great and powerful leaders of this world. Wise leaders focus on health, sustainability, and integrity. Shareholders and board members of Monsanto, you may have money now, but your children and grandchildren are and will be paying the price. Monsanto is poisoning our food, air, water, and environment. Stop it now. Report to us how you will reduce risk and loss, change direction, and do better. We ask you to vote yes on Proxy 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Temple. Before I respond, I'd like to underscore the safety of glyphosate and the safety of Roundup. Despite these assertions, in fact, as recently as the last 12 months since our last shareowner meeting, both the Canadian regulatory authorities and the European Food Standard agencies have completed exhaustive reviews and concluded again for the 40th consecutive year the exemplary safety in the product. If you direct your attention to page 86 in the proxy statement, share owners at this stage have had the opportunity to read the proponent's supporting statements in this proposal, as well as your board of directors' response and recommendation against the proposal, and I'll briefly summarize them. Glyphosate's been a valuable and a safe tool for farmers and other users around the world, not just here in the US, for 40 years. It will continue to serve as an important tool to help farmers sustainably grow additional crops that are going to be needed in the next 20 to 30 years. The overwhelming weight of scientific evidence during that time confirms that glyphosate, when it's used safely, when label instructions are followed, despite the proposal's highly misleading claims, is safe. Our board also believes that we've been transparent about our assessment of glyphosate safety, about the public policy initiatives and views regarding material risk to the company, and that the additional report requested today by the proposal is not warranted. Our board also opposes the proposal because what we're being asked to do is unclear, vague, and unworkable. At this point, before I move to the next proposal, I'd ask if there's any additional discussion related specifically to the share owner proposal. So again, the share owners who are voting from the floor today should mark their ballots to vote on the proposal requesting a report on certain matters relating to lobbying efforts in item number... No, it's not lobbying efforts, it's glyphosate in item number 5. So let me move now to the sixth item. The sixth item is a share owner proposal requesting a report on certain matters related to lobbying. And today we welcome Ms. Beth Savitt, representing the sponsor of the proposal. And Ms. Savitt, I'd like to invite you to present the proposal. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. My name is Beth Savitt, and I'm from Maui, in the Hawaiian Island chain. I'm the president of Sustainable Hawaiian Agriculture for the Keiki and the Aina. Today, I am representing Sow As You Sow. I'm moving proposal number 6. Corporate political spending is a highly controversial issue to the American public. Studies show that 80% of Americans would boycott a company to protest its political spending. 65% would sell stock in that company, and over half would ask their employer to remove it from their retirement account. Last year, shareholders filed 128 political spending proposals at major companies. Votes for proposals on lobbying disclosure averaged over 25% support. Monsanto shareholders request that the company disclose all payments used for direct or indirect lobbying or grassroots lobbying communications, and all payments to tax-exempt organizations that write and endorse model legislation. We also request that the company disclose its policies to oversee lobbying and trade association activities. When our company adopts these best practices, shareholders will be able to determine if lobbying is putting our company at risk by damaging our reputation and our valuable brand. This proposal arises from the trend in recent years for companies to make large payments to trade associations and other nonprofits to influence public and lobby politicians. This practice can backfire, as it is increasingly perceived by the public to be a means of hiding lobbying activities. As an example, in 2013 and 2014, the Grocery Manufacturers Association, a trade group often associated with our company, spent more than $18 million to influence ballot initiatives in Oregon and Washington. The Washington State Attorney General sued the trade association for violating campaign finance laws, forcing the association to disclose the identity of the companies that donated to it. These companies received negative press for being associated with a trade association charged of violating political spending laws and seeking to deny consumers the right to know what's in their food. Another example of risky corporate payments is the controversy over ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Association. ALEC writes and endorses model legislation for its members. Over the last 3 years, ALEC has incited national controversy for its political positions, such as denial of climate change. ALEC's members have suffered reputational damage, and corporate leaders like Google chairman Eric Schmidt, referred to their membership in that organization as a mistake. In 2015, Monsanto expanded its disclosures. We appreciate that step. It's good. However, the disclosures fail to indicate which parts of the payments to trade associations were used by the lobbying expenditures and which were used for political contributions. More importantly, Monsanto's disclosure is only limited to 501c6s and 501c4s organizations, leaving shareholders in the dark about other payments made by the company. What about the 501c3s? Finally, shareholders seek disclosure of Monsanto's policies to oversee its trade association activities. This information would assist shareholders in assessing the risks and benefits associated with the company's lobbying. Our company has significant room to improve. Therefore, we call on shareholders to vote for transparency. Item 6 on the proxy card. Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Thank you very much. Thank you. For the record, we are not a member of ALEC. I'm sure he's a very nice man, but we have no part, and we actually are believers in climate change and have taken significant steps to be part of the mitigating force there in the last year. So beginning on page 89 of the proxy statement, share owners had the opportunity in advance to read the proponent's supporting statement on this proposal, as well as your board of directors' response and recommendation against the proposal. I'll briefly summarize this. Our board believes that our company's participation in these political legislation and regulatory processes at all levels of government promotes good corporate citizenship and it enhances share owner value. We've already, and it was referenced in the earlier statements, we've already put in place extensive policies and procedures that are designed to ensure that all lobbying activities conducted by the company and all of our employees comply with applicable laws. These policies and these procedures are subject to robust internal controls and oversight, and our disclosures under federal law are also publicly available to all of our share owners through information provided on the company's website and links from that website to websites maintained by the U.S. House and Senate and also certain individual states as well. It's worth noting, as a measure of progress in 2015, the Center for Political Accountability's Zicklin Index of Corporate Political Disclosure and Accountability, Monsanto was ranked as one of the top companies included in that study in the past year. So our board believes that the information currently made available strikes the balance between transparency on one side and excessive burden and cost on the other, and that additional disclosures with respect to lobbying activities wouldn't provide useful information to share owners. So I would ask, is there any additional discussion at this time? Then the share owners again, the brave souls who are voting from the floor, should now mark their ballots to vote on the share owner proposal requesting adoption of share owner proxy access, and that is item number 6. The 7th proxy item is a share owner proposal requesting adoption of a policy to require an independent board chairman. Ms. Lisa Lindsley, is with us today to present the proposal. Ms. Lindsley, the floor is yours. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you also, Mr. CEO. My name is Lisa Lindsley, and I am presenting proxy item number 7, the shareholder proposal for an independent board chair, a chair who is not also the CEO, on behalf of the organization Some of Us. At last year's AGM, this proposal received support of 19% of shareholders. And we believe the case for independent oversight of management by the Monsanto board is even stronger this year. The board of directors is supposed to represent us, the shareholders, and oversee management. So it doesn't make any sense to us that the top manager, the CEO, also chairs the board. Evidence has proven that when firms separate the CEO and the chair, it eliminates the conflict of interest that inevitably occurs when the CEO is responsible for self-oversight. 48% of S&P 500 companies have separated the roles of chair and CEO. We don't think you should be your own boss, Mr. Grant. And we're not alone. Of the 150,000 people who signed our recent petition urging Monsanto to adopt an independent chair, over 8,000 were direct and indirect Monsanto shareholders. Shareholders need someone accountable to them minding the store, especially after a fiscal year that saw a total shareholder return of negative 14%. And since the end of the fiscal year, the stock price has dropped 5 points more than the S&P 500. Hundreds of millions of dollars were charged to earnings for potential settlements related to environmental fines, litigation, and SEC violations, potential SEC violations. the World Health Organization's determination that Roundup's main ingredient, glyphosate, is probably carcinogenic to humans is a milestone in the history of Monsanto. And if ever there were a time for independent board oversight, implementation of best practices, and visionary leadership, that time is now. We urge shareholders to vote for this proposal, and we urge the board to adopt this policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Lindsley. Again, I have to, on the recent IARC review that you reference, before I deal with the rest of the copy, I have to address that glyphosate and Roundup are not a carcinogen. And in the same time frame, we've seen exhaustive reviews from Canada and from the European Union, which underscore the continued safety of the product. With the proposal at hand, our board of directors believes in a company of our complexity and size, share owners today are best served by giving the board the organizational flexibility to select the best person to serve as chairman at any particular time. These governance structures have worked, ensuring that we're responsive to share owners while allowing the board to devote the time and attention necessary to oversee the execution of the company's strategy to become a leader in our industry. Our board regularly re-examines our corporate governance policies and leadership structures and believes that the current dual role of the chairman and chief executive officer strikes an appropriate balance that doesn't impede independent oversight. Our board believes that share owners support our current leadership structure as evidenced by our extensive outreach to our investors and our other stakeholders, as well as the voting results for our 2015 annual share owner meeting. Let me ask, is there any additional discussion around this topic at this time? Then for share owners, again, who are voting from the floor, they should now mark their ballots to vote on the share owner proposal requesting adoption of a policy requiring an independent board chairman under item number 7 in your card. So at this point, if the share owners who are voting from the floor can hold up your hand or hold up your card, the ballots will be collected. And in doing that, thank you. And in making that collection, the polls are now closed, and the results of the voting will be announced later. So before we continue with the formal part of our meeting, I'd like at this time to invite Brett Begeman, our President and Chief Operating Officer, to come to the podium and give you a brief update on our company, discuss some of the highlights from this past year, profile our ongoing commitment to supporting agriculture and farms around the world, and some of the challenges that we're facing as well. Brett.
So thank you, Hugh, and thank you to everyone for being here this afternoon with us. We've got a lot to cover, but first I'd like to start with a quick level set. Our business and our industry have faced significant headwinds over the last couple of years, driven by bumper harvest and a strong U.S. dollar, among other factors. Excuse me. Our farmer customers with us today have also felt those headwinds. However, long-term demand remains robust, and the agriculture sector is well positioned for the coming years. As you know, the world is expected to add 2 billion people by 2050. Many of those will be part of an emerging global middle class in India, China, and sub-Saharan Africa. So we're optimistic about what lies ahead for our business and our industry. But we're also aware that to realize the full potential of the opportunities in front of us, our industry must become even more sustainable. We must use less water. We must reduce the impact on the soil. We must effectively reduce agriculture's footprint. And ultimately, we must be part of the solution in combating climate change. That's why I'm particularly proud Monsanto has committed to taking action, most notably through our recent pledge to make our operations carbon neutral by 2021. Yes, climate change is an issue bigger than one company or one industry, but ag is positioned to be a significant part of the solution versus a part of the problem. And through innovation and collaboration across the industry, that kind of goal is within our reach. As we look ahead to the future opportunities and set big goals, we remain focused on delivering strong day-to-day performance. And that's what we did in 2015, despite a challenging ag environment. We generated continued ongoing earnings growth, supported the delivery of new innovation to our farmers, invested in new areas of research, continued our commitments to collaborating with others, and engaged in new conversations about agriculture. To focus in more closely on the financials for just a moment, we closed out the year with ongoing earnings per share of $5.73, or $4.81 on an as-reported basis. Full-year net sales results were driven by the strength of our seed segment, including a record adoption year in our South American soybean business. Overall, these results helped us achieve our 5th consecutive year of strong, ongoing earnings performance, despite tough conditions in the ag economy. Due to that economy, back in the fall, we issued our fiscal year 2016 guidance that was lower than our 2015's. But when the ag economy turns, and it will, we're poised for significant growth. Monsanto's current R&D pipeline has the potential to deliver up to $25 billion in peak net sales through the success of products like third-generation trait technologies and continued germplasm improvement. By 2025, we anticipate more than 1.3 billion acres of next-generation technology upgrades. And we continue our commitment to using the balance sheet wisely while returning value to you, our share owners. We've increased our dividend 4 times since the end of fiscal year 2011, and we're delivering additional value through our accelerated share repurchase program. We're pursuing $500 million in cost savings through fiscal 2018 by transforming and restructuring the way we operate our business here at our headquarters in St. Louis and around the world. And reflecting our continued momentum, strong performance, and ongoing opportunity, we outlined plans for $3.5 billion in gross profit growth from the end of fiscal year 2016 through fiscal year 2019. There's been a lot of discussion in the industry on consolidation, and we continue to believe there's room for further consolidation. And we are the best potential partner in an industry that is changing. I like where we sit today, with multiple options and the ability to evaluate opportunities with the best strategic fit and synergistic value. 2015 also saw increased discussion about crop protection, including glyphosate. 40 years ago, glyphosate literally changed the face of agriculture. Glyphosate enabled no-till farming, helping farmers produce more food for our world with a smaller impact on the environment. Like all pesticides, regulatory authorities around the world routinely review the latest safety data on glyphosate. And in 2015, regulators in both Europe and Canada once again reaffirmed their long-standing conclusion that glyphosate is safe for use. Because of decades of scientific data on the books, these positive conclusions were no surprise. A different group, called the International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, published a different opinion classifying glyphosate as a probable carcinogen. But glyphosate is hardly alone. IARC is the same group that said bacon, coffee, and shift work are also carcinogens. I think that tells you something. But no doubt, the IARC classification created unwarranted concern and confusion among consumers. So we've taken steps to help address the unfounded concerns. We asked a group of 16 preeminent scientists from around the world to review the IARC classification and offer their opinion, and to publish their conclusions for public scrutiny. Just like the U.S. EPA and regulators around the world, the experts concluded that there is no evidence to support the IARC classification and that IARC selectively interpreted pieces of data and followed non-standard toxicological practices. One of those experts, Sir Colin Berry, is with us today. Sir Colin, would you please stand? Thank you very much for being here with us today, Sir Colin. There's also been a lot of discussion on the subject of labeling. We have and continue to support a company's choice to provide voluntary labeling on GMOs. This year, a broad coalition of the food and agricultural industry took a step toward a comprehensive nationwide non-GMO labeling standard when the U.S. House of Representatives approved legislation that would require the USDA to develop and administer a certification program that provides a clear standard definition for non-GMO foods. We're hopeful that the Senate will pass legislation in 2016 that will provide a national solution to this debate and will avoid a state-by-state patchwork approach that would be unworkable, confusing, and costly. Related to this discussion, we're also excited about the Grocery Manufacturers Association's Smart Label initiative. Through this tool, packaging on tens of thousands of products will bear a QR code, providing consumers far more information than is currently available on boxes, cans, or packages. We have heard the consumers loud and clear. They want to know more about their food and how it's made. Not only information about GMOs, but on all kinds of topics like sustainability, sourcing, third-party certifications, and more. The Smart Label approach does that. Finally, in 2015, we continued to advance our corporate social responsibility efforts and received more than 40 Employer Choice Awards. We committed $4 million over the next 3 years to help support the monarch butterfly research, education, and habitat restoration. We also made a 3-year, $600 million commitment to sponsor the FIRST Championship, a robotic design competition for students that helps promote STEM education. We signed the Human Rights Campaign Equality Pledge to strengthen support for diversity and inclusion for everyone, including the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community. And for the first time, we were recognized as a great place to work in every region where we operate. So to sum up, our fundamentals are strong, and we're well positioned to continue creating value for our farmer customers and our business in a dynamic agricultural environment. On behalf of the entire board of directors and our employees, I want to thank you for your continued support and your investment in our business. We'd now like to resume the business portion of the meeting, and I'll ask our secretary to return to the podium. Our independent inspectors of the election have had the chance to tally the votes, so we'll now announce the results of the voting. Dave?
Thank you, Brett. So I'll now announce the voting results for the 7 matters that were voted on here today and previously. First, that each of the 13 persons listed on the proxy statement and nominated at this meeting as a director has received the affirmative votes of more than 96% of the votes cast, and therefore each nominee is indeed elected as a Monsanto director to hold office until their term expires or their earlier death, resignation, or removal. Second, the report shows that the shareholders who have ratified the Audit and Finance Committee's selection of Deloitte & Touche LLP as independent auditor of the company for the fiscal year 2016, and this proposal was passed by the affirmative vote cast of more than 99%. Third, the report shows that the proposal regarding the approval by a non-binding shareholder vote of executive compensation is passed by the affirmative vote of more than 96% of the votes cast. Fourth, the report report shows that the proposal regarding an annual incentive plan for covered executives has received the affirmative vote of approximately 98% of the votes cast, and therefore this proposal was approved. Fifth, the report shows that the shareholder proposal requesting a report on certain matters relating to glyphosate has received the affirmative vote of approximately 5.3% of the votes cast, and therefore this proposal was not approved. Six, the report shows that a shareholder proposal requesting a report on certain matters related to lobbying efforts has received the affirmative vote of approximately 20.8% of the votes cast, and therefore this proposal was not approved. And finally, the report shows that the shareholder proposal requesting the board to have an independent chairman has received the affirmative vote of approximately 14.8% of the votes cast, and therefore this proposal was not approved. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the formal business of this meeting.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks very much. So with the formal piece of the meeting behind us, let me move now to our question and answer period. If there are share owners who have questions, I invite you to go to the microphone to be recognized. To be fair to all share owners, as a courtesy to all share owners, I'd ask you to take your seat after you ask a question or make a comment, and you then can come up to the podium one other time after that for a total of 2 questions during the Q&A period. As a reminder, we ask that you stay within the 3-minute time limit as noted in the agenda card. So, and if you could introduce yourself and your affiliation, that would be helpful.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Parent. I'm 16 years old, and I'm the founder of an organization called Kids Right to Know. I'm here today representing youth and adults alike who are concerned about the food that they are putting in their bodies. I'm here representing youth who are suffering the issues that your company has made. So with that in mind, I'd like to continue. One of the statements in your annual report is that your success depends on public acceptance of your products. How do you expect the public to accept your GM crops if you make every effort to hide them? Computer manufacturers, for instance, are happy to put the label Intel inside on their products because they're proud of the technology that they use and believe that this is information consumers want to know. If you truly believe that your GM technology is safe, if you truly believe that it has the potential to feed the world, then why are you treating it like a dirty little secret that can't be shown on the label? Why, if it's such a proven technology, are you fighting it instead of promoting it? 64 other countries around the world already require mandatory GMO labeling. And actually an incredible example of this is Campbell's, which has recently come out and decided to stop opposing GMO labeling and support transparency by labeling genetically modified ingredients on all their products. They're doing this in response to consumer demands. Even the New England Journal of Medicine, in a recent post, supported labeling and stated that it's essential for tracking emergence of novel food allergies and assessing effects of chemical herbicides applied to GM crops. To date, more than 70 bills have been introduced in over 30 states to require GMO labeling. Labeling initiatives in California, Washington, and Oregon were just narrowly defeated because over $100 million was spent in misleading advertising campaigns, of which, of course, Monsanto was a major contributor. Fortunately, you weren't able to mislead the people of Vermont, which now has a law which will go into effect of July this year. So instead, you tried to sue them. You spent millions every year lobbying politicians to prevent GMO labeling laws from coming into effect, including bills H.R. 1599, dubbed the DARK Act, a.k.a. Deny Americans the Right to Know. You spent millions deceiving and misleading advertising. You spent untold amounts paying so-called independent scientists like Kevin Folta to discredit people such as myself. The GMO labeling movement is growing, and it's not going to stop. Mr. Grant, will you commit to stop wasting tens of millions of their money, the shareholders' money, on opposing consumers' right to know? Will you commit to stop fighting transparency and our freedom of choice? And will you commit to stop fighting democracy? Thank you.
Rachel, thank you. Thanks very much for making the trip today. You travelled a long way, and although you're not a share owner, I'm delighted to have you here. So you're very welcome as an invited guest. I'd also like to thank you for your passion. The debate on food, where food comes from, the security of future food, I think is a meaningful debate, and I'm very encouraged to see your participation. Let me talk about two or three things and try and be brief and stick to the 3-minute rule from this side of the microphone as well. It might surprise you, and Brett touched on this briefly in his remarks. It might surprise you to know that we have been in favor of voluntary labeling for many, many years. So the Cheerios example, the Campbell's soup example, we recognize, we applaud. We hope sincerely that we can reach some form of federal labeling standard that applies across the whole country. And our concern has been the emergence of state-by-state labels, where you end up with a patchwork quilt effect of legislation, where it's very difficult to know from state to state what is in the food. And that to move that food between states becomes very expensive and prohibitive. So our hope and expectation is that this will become a role for the FDA, and that we will see some form of national standard similar to the organic food standards that we see today. The last point I'd make is, and I think, there's maybe 40 years between you and me. I'm amazed at how quickly they went. But if you fast forward 40 years, and some of our growers here today have been farming for 35, 40 years is 40 harvests. And 40 harvests from now, when you're my age, there'll be 2 billion more people on the planet. It's going to be warmer, it's going to be dustier, it's going to be drier. And I think we're going to have to produce roughly, conservatively, twice as much food as we've produced today. And if we're wrong, we're wrong. I've undershot the estimate. I think as we think forward, we're going to need all the options that we can find to feed a hungry planet. But I think this conversation and this debate is a healthy one. But we shouldn't be shorting options as we look into the future. So with that, abiding by our 3-minute rule, I'd invite the next question from the floor for our informal session. And if I could ask you, I'm sorry, but if I could ask you just to introduce yourself before you begin.
Yes, Mr. Grant, I'm Sister Barbara Jennings. I represent the 375 members of the Interfaith Center for Corporate Responsibility, who are shareholders in Monsanto. We have seen welcome progress in 2015 in the company's work on the UN CEO water mandate. Monsanto representatives self-evaluated 345 global locations for global sanitation and health, and we look forward to the final decisions and specific implementation of the improvements. The Monsanto Deputy General Counsel is involved in high-level talks at the UN Agenda 2030, which is addressing the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. An adjacent report on water and food security and nutrition recommends an ecosystem approach to water conservation, reducing pollution and waste, investment in sustainable rain-fed and irrigated systems, and the technologies to achieve this. We continue to encourage the company to measure progress with governments, businesses, and customers. The Global Reporting Initiative also indicates progress in water recycling and water waste on Monsanto's contracted lands. We look forward to updated metrics on this next year. As we see them, the greatest challenges for our company in water are water runoff of nitrates and other chemicals from overuse of fertilizers. This issue is one of the reasons, among many, that the Mississippi River received a D+ from the American Watershed Initiative in October. We are glad the company is participating in the state nutrient reduction strategies, which has a goal of 45% less nitrates by 2025. This issue is a reputational and financial risk for our company and for growers. Receiving negative press this year regarding the Lake Erie algae and the Des Moines Waterworks lawsuit. So we do look forward to hearing more about less nitrates in our water systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm tag team with Sister Barbara because I'm also here representing the ICCR and MCRI. I'm Sister Carmen Snyder. My company is a shareholder in Monsanto, as well as being a part of the McCree Group. And I would like to just make some comments.
Just before you, I wonder if you could maybe introduce yourself.
Sister Carmen Snyder.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I want to just comment a little more on the local level and what Monsanto is doing here. And we congratulate Monsanto Fund for its outreach to high school and college students in our area, especially the Urban League Save Our Sons program and the United Way Summer Employment and Enrichment Program for 33,276 young people, especially those in poverty zip codes. Programs like Insight St. Louis, the Agriculture Institute, STEM education in both rural and urban communities, and summer internships are an excellent use of the company's fund dollars. We hope the local agencies and perhaps Monsanto will have resources to track the young people through their college or trade school and into the job market. ICCR members are urging all companies we work with to evaluate how many jobs they can provide to our local young men and women. Pope Francis has addressed the Davos Economy Forum this way. The growth of equality calls for decisions, mechanisms, and processes directed to a better distribution of wealth, the creation of resources of employment, and an integral promotion of the poor, which goes beyond a simple welfare mentality. Build yourself up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So I appreciate both your comments, and it's the linkage between the two of these, between healthy rivers and a nitrate reduction goal 10 years out, and the work we're doing in St. Louis, this great town of St. Louis, and the commitment we've made as a community here. I think the linkage in these is, as you both encouraged, is measurement. And the key in this is tracking and measurement in both of these areas. And you have my commitment and your company's commitment to measure that progress. Because without that, it's meaningless. So thank you for coming. Can I invite the next speaker?
Hi, it's me again, Ann Temple with Moms Across America. This isn't actually even on my list, but I would like to address the SMART label, which
please.
I don't really think is all that smart. What you didn't show, you showed lots of information up there, which was great, but what you didn't show is the QR code is unreadable unless you have a smartphone. I don't know what the percentage of people who actually have a smartphone in this world, but I'm thinking it's probably pretty low. And I think it's discriminatory. And I don't know about what busy moms we have here, but I do not want to have to go to the store and scan every single item that I'm buying when a simple one-line statement on my food label that says this contains genetically modified ingredients would do perfectly well. And I would just like that addressed because I know this is something that Monsanto supports, and like I said before, I think it's very discriminatory, and I think it should be going the other way so that we know what's in our food. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think phone technology is pretty widely available in the U.S. The unique thing about that QR code, especially in a lot of smaller packages, is the amount of information that code conveys is way more than you can portray in the real estate of a label. But I thank you for your comments. Can we go to the next person? And if I could ask you again just to introduce yourself before you step, or as you step for the mic.
Good afternoon. Fred Yoder. I'm a farmer in Ohio, but I'm also the chair of the North American Climate Smart Agriculture Alliance, which is trying to figure out how to farm more climate smart. I recently attended the COP21 meetings in Paris. I know Monsanto was there as well, and they made commitments to become more carbon neutral for their own company, as well as understanding the possibilities of what agriculture can do. While there's no specific language in the COP21 agreement on agriculture, it is clear that agriculture is going to be a solution to many of our problems. And I commend you. As a shareholder of Monsanto, I'm very, very happy that Monsanto has committed to delve into this and commit resources and the science that we can get to where we need to go. Thank you very much, because without technology, we'll never get there. One of my pet peeves or goals is to figure out how to feed a hungry world, the 9.5 billion people by 2050. And that is, it's already been said, that we have to double our yields. So the only way we're going to do that is it's all hands on deck. It's technology. It's also soil health. It's also creating more productivity with a less environmental impact. And so the three pillars we operate under in the Climate Smart Agriculture Alliance is productivity. Farmers respond to productivity. That's where Monsanto will come in to come up with new ways to be more productive. The second pillar is adaptive management. We have to adapt to a changing climate. We have to figure out ways. How do we deal with a 3-inch rain rather than a 1-inch rain? How do we deal with droughts? And your traits like drought guard and things like that's going to really help us. And then, of course, the third one is ecosystem services, or being more carbon neutral. And if you do number one and number two, you'll get there. Farmers have to take a leadership role in this endeavor. And we're going to need technology and resources that Monsanto has to offer. So thank you again for your efforts.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Thank you. I just say briefly in response, I agree with the three pillars and how we integrate these. There's the opportunity for farmers, for growers around the world, large and small, to be a part of the solution rather than being a part of the problem or perceived problem. So my hope is that by 2021, I think we'll be carbon neutral by 2021. I kind of hope we'll get there before 2021. But my hope is, as we do that, we are engaging and enrolling others in the agricultural community so that we get some scale and some leverage to this. So thank you for your comments.
Hello,
yes.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
All right. There's no scientific consensus among scientific researchers about the safety of GMOs, and I actually have a statement here from 300 scientists that say there is no consensus. Hundreds of independent scientists from around the world have issued public warnings about GMOs as far back as 1999 to 2015. Nearly 2 decades after genetically engineered crops have been incorporated into our food, no long-term human health studies have been performed. However, feeding studies have been done on animals, and the results are sobering. organ damage, digestive disorders, organ damage, tumors, infertility, and even things like stillbirth. It's no surprise, of course, that Monsanto has called these studies into question and has made every attempt to discredit them and their authors, rather than reviewing them in objectivity and learning from them. Isn't the nature of science to question things and keep testing results to uncover the facts? Some people have said that I'm anti-science, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm asking for more science, independent, peer-reviewed science. According to your annual report, public acceptance of your products is key to your success. At the moment, consumer acceptance is very low. Consumers don't feel that GMOs have ever been proven safe. The 90-day animal feeding studies that you have undertaken aren't sufficient enough to determine the long-term health risks. Also, these studies are not peer-reviewed, and the raw data is not available for independent scientists to review. If you want to improve your consumer acceptance, you have to be transparent. Mr. Grant, will you commit to publish on your website the controlled animal feeding studies that Monsanto conducted to determine the safety of GMOs and Roundup, including the raw data? If your studies prove that GMOs are safe, you have nothing to worry about.
Thank you again, Rachel. You covered a lot of ground. It's extraordinary. This is the 20th anniversary this year. This is the 20th season of planting GMOs. And as we go through the next 3 or 4 years, that anniversary clicks out around the world as well. So the U.S. led and the world has followed. 20 short years later, and I talked earlier about 40 harvests in the future, but 20 short years later, 4 billion acres have been planted on the planet. 3+ trillion meals have been served without a single health issue. And as you look towards Europe and their consumption now of plant-based protein that they feed to animals, this is a trend that's continuing to increase, and we need more plant-based protein as you look to the future. So I would disagree with your assertions. These are the most widely tested products that the food industry has ever seen, and the food studies, both independently, both third party and produced by companies like Monsanto, have passed muster with glowing colors over the years. So thank you for coming, but I humbly disagree with your conclusion. Sir, if you could... I'm sorry.
Good afternoon. I'm David Clevenger. I'm a grower from Texas, and I want to make a disclaimer. I do grow Monsanto seeds, but Monsanto doesn't tell me what seeds I do grow. And I do have lots of choices from other companies and plant other companies' seeds. And I choose to use Monsanto because of the service they provide, the technology they brought to my farm. Last year I was a little naive sitting in this room and sitting in the front, and all the accusations that were thrown at this company and in turn thrown at me because of accusing me of doing things that weren't happening. After this meeting, I spoke with Zen, and I asked that you send my sympathies to the loss of her family. And we talked about 2 months over the course of Facebook Messenger. And we even came to the conclusion we might have liked each other had we met in different circumstances. But at the end of the day, she and her group truly believe there's a conspiracy going on in this nation of companies and farmers to poison her family and her friends. And I would just ask that the moms across America, don't take my word for it. Don't take her word for it. Research this stuff out, because when the ARC findings came out, I myself perked my ears and said, what's the truth behind this? And I got information from Monsanto, but I also got information from other companies of saying, is glyphosate a carcinogen? My son farms with me. My grandchildren are on my farm. I want the safety for them. So in those findings, it shows coffee, pickled vegetables cause harm, are in the same category as glyphosate. So therefore, in my discussions with Zen, I said, lots of chemicals, if you take the soap underneath your sink and drink it, it's going to cause harm. If you take a bushel of prunes and eat those prunes, it's going to cause some harm. So, in understanding all of this, I would ask the moms across America, think about logic, because life is about relationships, life is about your family. And I want what's best for my family, and I want what's best for my friends. If you think I'm going to go out and poison my family and poison my friends, that's not going to happen. In the same sense, the scientists, the people that work for Monsanto, they have family, they have friends, and they're going to protect those relationships. And for Zen and her group to think they're the only ones that are protecting their friends, she's sadly mistaken. And today I want to tell all the employees of Monsanto, all the scientists, I appreciate what you're doing, because, there's a reason why there's not many farmers left. It was a tough life. Yeah. Many people in America, they are removed from the farm, and the reason why they left the farm because it's tough, and they didn't want to work that hard, and they wanted to go to an easier life. And now that they're gone and they don't understand what we do, Monsanto has made my life easier, and I can have more time with my family and enjoy my life much better. So thank you, employees. Thank you, scientists, for the work you've done, and I applaud you, and I hope the board continues this endeavors that they're doing, because this food issue is a national security issue. Yep. And if you think ISIS is bad, you don't have any food in this world, we are in trouble. And while don't get me wrong, organics are great, and if you're in that income stream that you can afford organics, congratulations to you. But I was in Honduras on a vacation last week, many starving, hungry children, and they don't have the opportunities that we do in the United States. And we have become spoiled because we want, and so don't take away from those other people. If you want to do organics, great, do it, but don't take away from the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for your encouragement. It's funny because I talk to people and they always talk about our scientists, and we're beyond this room and across St. Louis, but around the world, we're mums and dads before we're scientists. So I think that was so I appreciate your encouragement. Let me invite other questions.
Hi, I'm Lisa Lindsley from Some of Us. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the board on the adoption of proxy access, which is an important shareholder right that was voted on last year. That's a great progress for shareholders, for Monsanto shareholders. I also wanted to talk to the issue of the community development that Monsanto has done in the St. Louis area, and applaud Monsanto for doing that. As we can see, those of us outside of St. Louis, with the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement from St. Louis, there's a lot of economic development that's sorely needed here. I also wanted to address the issue that it's important. There are a lot of people who, those in Honduras, as you mentioned, and in other less developed countries, who can't afford to come to the Monsanto shareholder meeting or even purchase shares in Monsanto. And I don't have any reason to believe that Monsanto is investing as much in their communities as they are in the St. Louis community, which may be natural because you're headquartered here. But I think that a quick scan of the news will see farmers committing suicide in India and Bangladesh, and massive protests against Monsanto in Argentina and Mexico. So I think that it's really important. It's very easy to just focus on the people who are around us and people who look like us, but it's very important to take a global perspective because you are a global company.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I completely agree. So the interesting thing about agriculture is everywhere, and we produce seed, and you grow seed where you sell it. So we are in many, many parts of the world, and in those parts of the world, we make the investments with the same ethos and diligence that we make here in the communities that we work in and we serve. So actually, over the years, we've migrated money from St. Louis and from North America to many of those other parts of the world, and we focus principally in those parts of the world on education, mainly in impoverished areas and mainly science education. But I can assure you that the gradient isn't focused here because we live here. I'm really proud of what we're doing in St. Louis, and St. Louis needs help right now, and I think that was one of the points that was made earlier. But we are looking beyond the city limits, and we're looking beyond the country borders as well. Yes?
Hello, everyone. My name's Laura Graves, and I'm here to really speak for myself as an employee and a share owner. And I actually would really like to thank the last two commenters for their question and their comments, because they directly tie into the perspective that I was hoping to share with all of you today. So I grew up in the suburbs. I still live in the suburbs, but I was really inspired in college to work in agriculture and get my hands dirty. And so for the last 10 years, I've been working here in R&D. I'm a geneticist by training. And today I have the opportunity to work with our plant breeding programs in Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. And I can tell you that all around the world, the commitment to improving agriculture from Monsanto is alive and well. As a scientist, I think that you'd probably expect me to say that what makes this the best company to work for in the world, and at least in agriculture in the world, is the science that we do and the innovation that we have. And that's all cool and that's great. But really what makes this the best place to work all over the world, and I can say this from what I've seen personally, are the values that we have as a company and the values of the people who work here. And the commitment that we have to not only working to help improve agriculture, but to help improve the lives of the people in the communities that we live and work in all over the world. So I'm blessed today to know personally people in my team who are out in the Philippines planting mangroves on the shorelines to help protect against erosion of the beaches when the typhoons come. And colleagues in my team in India who are working on STEM outreach programs for girls in India so that girls can have more access to science. And I wish that I could put a GoPro on my head and take you all with me when I travel the world today so that you could see that and see the same perspective that I have, because it's really beautiful and inspiring, and that is a big part of what gets me up every day and drives me to work here. And those values of the company are the same values that I'm teaching my son. He's in kindergarten, and we all know that's where you learn everything about life, is in kindergarten. And so, my perspective and the way I was raised is that you should take the gifts that you've been given and the opportunities and the resources that you have and find a way to give back and do something more for this world. And I truly believe that that's the mission of Monsanto. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't invite additional questions.
Yes. It's Dr. Beth Savitt from the Shaka Movement from Maui again. Hello.
Welcome back.
Hi.
And thank you for my my beads here. I appreciate it.
And those beads have honu, or turtles, on them that are very precious to us on Hawaii and are currently under a blight. But that's another subject.
Yeah.
Well, in 2014, Maui County asked for a moratorium on the crop growing and field testing, open-air field testing, that was occurring on the island of Maui. It's a very wonderful place for agriculture. We have growing seasons all year round. There's no limit. We have a beautiful wind that could possibly carry that pesticide away. Unfortunately, there's houses between the wind and the fields. So 32 countries asked for the precautionary principle to be invoked. They said, stop, wait a minute, let's look at these combination of chemicals. They're not applied one at a time. Glyphosate is not applied as glyphosate. It has inert ingredients and other ingredients in it. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the 80 different chemicals used in our island that, when we asked the EPA in county council testimony, have you ever tested any of these in combination? Their answer was befuddlement and no. These chemicals have never been tested in combination. Chemicals that combined make new compounds that we know not of. We have found on the windowsills of homes throughout Maui County, we have found atrazine, dicambra, 2,4-D, pendimethyline, hexazione, and methotrine. It was also confirmed to us by Ms. Rachel Hellman from the EPA Pesticides Branch, that an illegal nerve agent, MCAP-N, methylparathioin, was sprayed on Maui in 2014 and 2015. On 7/15 and 7/14 at 10 a.m. in the morning, they were sprayed in combination with several other chemicals that day. There's a certain wind speed on Maui. If you've been there, it's gorgeous. Those tropical breezes. So, appropriately, you can only spray when the trade winds at a certain level. That day, they were way beyond. They were 23 miles per hour that day. We've asked for the precautionary principle. But wait, we weren't the only ones. The President's Cancer Panel in 2008, their number one recommendation regarding pesticides was precautionary principle. Stop, slow down, come to a table, talk. Let's do some hard science on these combinations. And the combinations we're testing, especially if they're in open air and can float into people's homes. There are currently a population of about 1,000 people living right next to one of the open-air experimental fields in Kihei, Maui. These people are suffering asthma, as well as other debilitating diseases. We know from the CHARGE study, and we know from the studies in Watsonville and Salinas, that there's a 7-point difference in IQ of the children whose parents are farm workers in Watsonville and Salinas. 7 points. As a clinical psychologist, that brings down, our average IQ in America is 100. That brings it down to 93.
We're well past the field.
Okay, sorry.
It's all right.
So what I ask is, can we join in the precautionary principle? Can we stop and test these things? Can we make sure we're doing no harm? That is the first of the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm. And that's all we're asking for.
Thank you. So you covered quite a bit ground. Let me just pick up two pieces here. One is Hawaii. So Hawaii is very important to us in our business, but it's an important community, and it kind of ties back to some of the other points that were made earlier. We are a significant employer in Hawaii. We're voted as one of the best places to work in Hawaii, and we are committed. We're committed to our presence there. Our production of seed in Hawaii, you're right, it grows year-round, but production of seed in Hawaii is important to satisfy the demand for seed, which is translated into food and feed. If you look at our use of pesticides in Hawaii, we use integrated pest management. So we're relying on a range of options there to control bugs and injurious diseases. We follow and document very carefully the products that we use. The extraordinary thing in Hawaii today is, and these are published stats, 25% of the pesticides today in Hawaii are used in agriculture. 75% are not. They're used in homes, in golf courses, in landscaping, in hotels, and in many other areas. So we take our position as a responsible community member in Hawaii seriously, and we are committed to a long-term presence on the island. The second point, when you leave Hawaii and you start talking about asthma, and it's kind of a theme that maybe connects a few of the comments this afternoon as we come to the end of this session. I mentioned this earlier. We appreciate, I understand I'm committed to the interest in food and where food comes from. I think it's a really healthy debate, and it's the right time for that conversation. The piece that saddens me, especially when you see parents needlessly frightened, at the very time that they're looking for clarity or they're looking for help as mums and dads, some of this perpetuation of these myths makes it very, very hard for them to figure out what's fact and what's fiction. So I hope at some point we can get past this, get to the scientific detail, and start to help parents make appropriate decisions and feel more comfortable about the food that they're eating and where that food comes from and how it's produced. So with that, I would invite. I think we've kind of cycled through our. Please, I am.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Metz. My wife and I are fifth-generation farmers out in South Dakota.
Good afternoon.
My great-great-grandfather came out to that area to farm, actually to Dakota Territories. It wasn't even a state yet. Today, my son lives on that farm. His my grandchildren, his children are the seventh generation on that farm. We believe in agriculture. All four of my children, after getting an education, came back to agriculture. Not because you're going to get wealthy, because it is a great business, it's a great way of life, and we so much believe in it. Having said that, I hear the discussion of people protesting against Monsanto in Argentina. I've been to South America very, very many times. I've had Argentinians, Brazilians, Paraguayans come to our farm. They are our neighbors. They're our friends. Yes, we're competitors, but they are still our friends. They have incorporated a use of biotechnology at a higher rate even than us in the United States. When I was in France last spring, visiting with a farmer who was not allowed to use GMO, he was planting. We were in his field. I asked, if you had the right to, would you do it? In a heartbeat. The Europeans understand that they are losing out as farmers because they cannot compete when they cannot use modern technology. I think the greatest thing in my 40 years of farming has been the adoption of biotechnology. My third point, we keep talking about the 2 billion people who are going to be in the world in the next few years. But we really need to realize, if you've been to China, if you've been to Vietnam, Southeast Asia, is the number of people leaving the farm, 1 and 2 acre farms, and coming to the city. I was told when I was there in October that the equivalent of the entire population of the United States will move to the city in the next 10 years. Yep. That requires a lot of food. So our Brazilian friends and the Americans produce about 90% of the exportable soybeans in the world, and about 95% of those are GMO. That is how important it is. My very last comment is a word or a vision. I hear how farmers douse their crops with Roundup. An acre is approximately the size of a football field. A football field. That's 1 acre. We put approximately 12 to 18 ounces of Roundup per acre. I challenge any of you to try to douse a football field with a big gulp. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ann Temple, once again, Moms Across America. I can't believe I'm going to say this, Mr. Grant, but there's something we agree on. And that is that we need to move more towards plant-based protein as a food source. You want to talk about feeding the world? We need to move away from the animal agriculture, and we need to start planting these fields to grow food for people. That's my opinion. I'm sticking to it. But we agree on that. Probably will be the last time.
Don't say that.
So, and but I also want to talk. I'm a firm believer in root cause analysis. So when I started getting involved in these issues, I wanted to know, where did glyphosate come from and what was it used for? And I don't know if everybody knows, but it was the Stouffer Chemical Company that originally created it to clean out the inside of boilers. It was used as a chelator to grab a hold of minerals so that they could spray it on the inside of the boilers, wash them out. It would grab a hold of these minerals, and then they would wash it out, and it killed everything outside that this water touched. And then Monsanto said, "This is awesome. Can we buy this molecule from you?" And that's basically how this all got started. But as we stand now, we have, superweed resistance. We have Roundup formulations there. It's over 40 years old, and superweed resistance is on the rise. 300 million acres are reporting superweeds, over 250 types of weeds, and Roundup really isn't working anymore. So I think it's time to retire this technology, yet your board is investing millions in dicamba, also in older chemicals, to replace glyphosate and continue on this toxic treadmill of chemical cocktails. Does this sound like a good plan? I don't think a business plan should include sickness and death, and more toxins will not work. You don't need to find another chemical to replace Roundup. You need a new business plan. Albert Einstein said, "We cannot solve problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. So on plant-based protein, we need more plant-based protein. Today, China consumes 2/3 of the world's soybeans, and they're feeding chickens and hogs, and my expectation is that will increase. So as I look to the demands of a hungry planet, we are going to have to produce more plant-based protein, but I am assuming that a large piece of that is consumed by livestock. The revisionism on Roundup. Roundup was invented here. It was a molecule that was discovered here. But I guess 40 years kind of blurs some of that. But it's just for the record, that's where it came from. It is true we're seeing some resistance after 40 years. And it is true that we are developing alternative products, and we need them. And it ties to many of the comments this afternoon. As you look to the future, as you look towards the demands of doubling food production on the same footprint, growers say there's no new dirt. There's no new dirt and there's no new water. So we're going to have to produce more on the same or a shrinking footprint and use less water and less fertilizer. And I think that's, when you talk about a new business model, that is the heart of our business model, and I think it's a noble goal. So with that, I'm kind of blinded by the light, sir.
Sir, Colin Berry from London. People have been boasting about how long they've been involved with various things today, and I can say that 40 years is very appropriate. It's been 40 years that I have been involved with the regulation of pesticides, drugs, or medical devices in the United Kingdom, Europe, and at WHO. And I wanted to say something about the precautionary principle, and I think it's very often misunderstood. I did all those things that I've just remarked upon, but my day job was to be chairman of pathology at St Bartholomew's and the Royal London Hospitals, where I've done, I guess, around 300,000 biopsies and have done more than 10,000 autopsies. And as I worked at the hospital for sick children for 6 years, a great many, sadly, in children. Many of the diagnoses that I made were unhappy ones for those who were hearing the answer, and perhaps I was consoling families. And even worse, perhaps, in children's tumours, sometimes saying, "I'm afraid you have a risk of having another affected child." Now, I am offended by the suggestion that somehow, in considering the data we have on which to make regulation, I am somehow not precautionary. There's an enormous conservatism built into the registration of pesticides. Thousands of times the doses are often tested in animals. In fact, that is a confounding issue in itself. But I think people should be reassured that regulators in general are an extremely conservative bunch.
Beth again.
Welcome back for your
Thank you.
second question.
Yes, my second question, and I won't go so long. Well, in light of that statement, I'd like to make a little report on what the New England Journal of Medicine is speaking of today. Their past issues brought up that your 2,4-D and your glyphosate, your Enlist duo, the studies for those predated our current knowledge of low-dose exposure. endocrine-mediated effects, and epigenetic effects. Your risk assessment gave little consideration in infants and children, thus contravening federal pesticide law. It also failed to consider the ecological impacts to pollinators. That is from the New England Journal of Medicine. The American Academy of Pediatrics says the most immediate source of pesticides, because you pointed out that a lot of the pesticides are put in homes, but the most immediate pesticides are from food. They know this because when they take away pesticide food from children, in 3 days' time, their urine won't have organophosphates in it. Just buy an organic diet for 3 days. So the exposure to these things is serious, and the food supply is the one that brings it into our bodies the most. And again, even the New England Journal of Medicine is now asking for risk assessments to be redone before you continue with endless duo.
I'm sorry, what was that last piece before you continue?
The New England Journal of Medicine article also requested new risk assessments. They're very concerned. The doctors are very concerned about the studies. And I want science. I think we all want science. And I'm reading tons of science from good people. Thank you.
Thank you. I was encouraged with your appetite for science. So we too have an appetite for science. If you look at the regulatory profile in glyphosate over 40 years, and I think it ties with Sir Colin Berry's statements, the safety record of the product with 40 years, where in any given year over those 40 years, glyphosate has came under an annual regulatory review. And these reviews generally last more than a year. And over that 40-year period, and I mentioned earlier Canada and the European Union, as recently as the end of last year, they've had exemplary safety commendations on the product when used as directed. And have confirmed again that it is not a carcinogen. So I hesitate to invite, but are there any other questions that anybody would like to, or any comments that anybody would like to make today? Yes, sir. If you step towards the microphone. Take your time.
My name is Douglas Scott. I'm a former employee and a shareholder for many years. And I would like to just ask, is there any alternative to glyphosate that is any safer?
No, there is not, and I don't mean to be tongue-in-cheek. I've spent a big piece of my career. I actually started working in fields with farmers doing trials with glyphosate, but it's changed tillage practices. So the size, and I'm telling you, you know.
I've been watching it all. I've been watching it for years. I know farmers have told me that they feel a lot more safe using Roundup than anything they used to use, and they can grow 4 times as much corn with it. You know.
So the challenge ahead of us is how we manage soil better, how we lock CO2 into that soil, and how we cultivate even less. Yes. And I think that's the next 20 years in this journey.
These farmers I talked to around the Merrimack River bottom, and they had a soil erosion problem before they started using Roundup.
Yeah.
Roundup works. 90% of the crop stays in the field because it's the only thing they take out is the corn kernels or the beans. So,
thank you. Thanks very much. I think the other thing that we are working on is, thank you, is how we use mustards and clovers and grow crops through the fall that stop that soil blowing away and put nitrogen back into the soil through the winter. But thanks very much for your comments. If there are no other questions, then let me conclude and thank you for your patience and for your attendance today. And as share owners, this is a share owner meeting. So as owners in your company, I appreciate you coming. I also want to thank our visitors who travelled a long way to be here and who exhibited the courage to come to the microphone. It's not an easy thing to do, and I want to thank you for that as well. And I want to particularly thank our grower customers for their attendance, for their counsel, and for what they do. Farming is misunderstood, and the further that we drift from the farm, unfortunately, the more work we have to do in the coming years in explaining where food comes from, how it's grown, and the remarkable work that these families do. Agriculture in the next 20 years faces significant challenges, but we all do. The challenge of fresh water, the challenge of food scarcity, and the challenge of climate are three interlinked pieces of a triangle that agriculture and growers around the world have the opportunity of making a fundamental difference and answering those three challenges simultaneously. So on behalf of your board of directors, on behalf of my team, I wanted to thank you for your support in this company, and I would ask you to travel home safely. And with that, I will adjourn the meeting today. Thank you very much.